Yes, I am. I am Eastern European. Yeah, I just was. This I had on my mind for a while. I had an idea to talk about the stereotypes a little bit. You know, in general, what the perception of us, how it is in the Western medias. How we are most often portrayed. So yeah, I mean. For instance, especially people from my area, like the former Yugoslavia and Russia, and those countries of the Soviet Union, they are very often shown in a negative way, actually, in Western movies and TV shows as criminals. Thugs, very thuggish life, with that kind of expression. So that's unfortunately, yeah, that's how we are most often portrayed. Yeah, how much truth is that there to that stereotype? Well, you know what I can tell you. I have known also several people from former Soviet Union. Let's say I have met people from Poland, from Romania, Bulgaria. Yeah, I mean, you know, most of these countries anyway. And well, what I can tell you is that an average person, all right, let's put it that way, is not as politically correct as in the Western countries. That's true. They will most often hold some kind of either racist or misogynist kind of views. Some more than others, let's put it that way. Some don't have you know so much racism or misogynism in them, but it is rather common, I would say, for Eastern European countries to have at least a little of that. You use racist terms, and yeah, women are often, especially in the poorer families and families outside the big cities, especially in the big cities, of course, a little different, I would say. But in the medium size and the small towns, I would say that there is quite a lot of, misogyny going on. Women not treated as equals to their husbands, and instead of treated more like servants, more or less. I don't know, maybe today, I don't know how much that has changed because, I don't live where I'm from anymore. I mean, I haven't lived there since 92, actually, in Bosnia. So, but anyway, I know I go down there a lot, alright? I go down there like almost every year. So, yeah, I mean, it's not that women are treated that bad in so many homes, I would say, but there is definitely that sort of, especially that was the case before, like 30, 40, 50 years. They are, if there's a talk about politics and stuff, when men talk about politics, then, if a woman tries to say something, she will most likely not really be listened to, and stuff like that. She will not will be told, "Oh, what do you know? Just, keep your mouth shut about this." So there's a lot of that. They don't always get they don't always get hurt. That's for sure. And so, why is it like, well, why is it like that over there? Hmm. Of course, for a long time, the whole Eastern Europe, well, not the whole maybe, but a lot of it. And especially in the southeast, I would say, well, northeast has had, some a little bit more development, civilization going on. But I would say the southeast, the Balkans, that have for a long time been underdeveloped because it was, the Ottomans were ruling it and they weren't very, like Europe, weren't very developed. I mean, that way they did when the Industrial Revolution came, then they didn't want to be part of that. So as a result, all those countries that they held were also became underdeveloped. They suffered because of that. And at the same time, this new way of thinking, which became prevalent in countries like Britain, France, Spain, Italy, Germany, it didn't reach those countries. That was a shame because that was when all this really started to develop this, you know, anti-discrimination, like all races are equal, all women and men are equal. Even though, you might say, people say in the Ottoman Empire and also certain Asian countries, women were actually, did have a higher standing than in most Western countries. But still, there wasn't enough feminism going on there, definitely. Many of them were still treated, you concubines and servants and all that. But let's return to the original topic. Hmm. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's even though it's true that many Eastern Europeans are behind in that way, in that aspect, when it comes to looking at all the races and nationalities equally, like without prejudice. Yeah, that's the word. They tend to be a little, prejudiced in that way. Like, yeah, we are better. The others are beneath us. They are lower than us. Like, so that's how sometimes. But they look at other races and nations. I mean, non-European nations. But still, there's one other factor. Uh, all those countries have suffered a lot, during communism. And, I think that's mostly did the what made all these people so hard inside, and yeah, not so so how do you put how should I put it? Not so in they they don't really want to embrace, other points of view, other points of view, other cultures. They don't really readily want to embrace them if they are different than theirs. That's how it works, I think. And so these people, I mean, are pretty, you know, simply hard. They will not never, for instance, they have a hard time giving compliments unless they really mean it. Well, maybe that's a good thing, maybe, I don't know. But at the same time, they can be brutally honest, really brutally honest. I know this woman, for instance, from Ukraine, she was very like, I mean, She was so honest to the point of, you know, being sadistic almost. And yeah, like, because back then in the days of the communism, it wasn't even allowed to smile. Like, you know, you weren't supposed to smile on photographs, and you know, everybody was supposed to be very serious, and you know, there wasn't that kind of happy-go-lucky philosophy like in Western Europe, you know. And I mean, yeah. So that's what made all these people so different, I believe. It had there not been for this system, all right, that I already mentioned, not gonna mention the name again, all right. It begins with a C, right? But it's not capitalism. So that system was what made, you know, all the difference, right, between the West and Eastern Europe. Because in the old days, in the like Middle Ages, you really couldn't tell so much difference between the two. You know, there wasn't that much either economically or culturally. You know, you couldn't really say, oh, East Europe is so much. You know, less developed than Western. No, that wasn't the case, you know, especially with, you know, these kingdoms like Poland, Hungary, you know, Russian kingdom, all that empire. I mean, they were really highly developed, you know. So, yeah, I mean, it's a pity, of course, it's a tragedy, that whole stuff that happened, you know. Yeah, of course, even though we in the Balkans, I mean, in Yugoslavia, we didn't have the same kind of system. It was a little bit, there were some similarities, of course, but still, we were always like in the crossfire. That's what made us hard. Like, you know, it wasn't that the communism, because we didn't have it. We had socialism, or so that's the big difference. I mean, you could say certain things that weren't allowed in that system over there. In East Bloc, you either went to the gulag or you got shot. Or, you know, but yeah, and so what made us hard was that all it was constant warfare going on in that area, always, always. So, but still, people have learned all the hardship have made them more, you know, eager to help each other and ready. You know, I don't think people, especially in Northwest Europe, for instance, are that ready to help somebody, especially if they don't really know you, like people from the area where I come from. That's what I can say. So that's the positive thing about all that, all the hardships that my country and my area has experienced. So, of course, it's not right, you know, that we are being presented as criminals most often. And the few times when we are not the bad guys in movies, we are most often the little guys, you know, the victims. You know, that's another thing. I don't think that's much better, really, but at least it's some kind of improvement anyway. So you got movies like Breaking and Entering, for instance, which I like because it's a movie where the main character Jude Law he falls in love with a Boston woman, and he meets and her son is, you know, like in that story as well. So it's a rather, but there is still also there is an element of, you know, youth uh, delinquency but still, it's not as bad as many other. I mean, I've watched like Swedish and Danish movies about the Yugoslav or Serbian mafia or Albanian mafia. So I mean, it seems that these filmmakers are only interested in putting characters from that part of Europe uh, in a movie only as if they are criminals, right? They are not interested in us in any other way, I would say. And that's what's really, bad. So I would like to finish with that. This was a little bit messy kind of video, but this is improvised, so whenever I'm not talking about boxing, it's sometimes it can get like that. All right, so thank you to all you who will watch this. Have a nice day. Have a nice weekend.